Hey there, everybody. This is Kristin from Teaching Balance, and I am here with you with this week's mindfulness meditation practice. We are in the month of being gentle with ourselves. I always like to talk about this theme around this time of year when we are in the month of transitioning back into school. I think most of you are probably back already or going very soon. But if you don't go back for a while, feel free to just put a pin in this topic, and then you can come back when you are at that place in your returning back to school year. But for the rest of us right now, in this moment, it is the month where we are getting back into the groove of school. And I think that, as I've talked about in these first few weeks, that it's so important for us to acknowledge the fact that this transition is difficult. And actually, in truth, I think all transitions are hard, and we should acknowledge that. And because transitions are difficult, that it really is useful for us to be extra gentle with ourselves, to resist any temptation to be self-critical or push ourselves too hard, or to even think that we have the resources to do, the things that we think we can do later on in the school year, where we actually kind of have gotten our sea legs back and have a little bit more of that sort of stamina for the level of work that we do. And so we've talked about things relating to that, and as I was reflecting on, obviously this is all shades of the same idea, of course, being gentle with yourself, being kind to yourself. Whatever you have control over, whatever's within your scope of your sphere of influence, doing what you can to try to just make things as easy as possible for yourself, which really is what inspired this week's invitation, which I was trying to think of how to phrase it, because at first I was thinking good enough. But then, that's sort of I'm good enough, and I didn't mean it that way. What I'm thinking about is not holding yourself to as high of a standard at this time of transition as you might, perhaps, as I was just saying earlier, later in the school year, where you've got your sea legs, you've got your stamina back, you sort of are in your groove. If you want to hold yourself to whatever standard feels appropriate to you at that time, that's fantastic. I am also a big fan of trying to grow and evolve and be my best, as much as anybody. And I also want to acknowledge the fact that at this time, when we're still trying to get back into it and we're adjusting and we're in this these weeks of transition, that you might want to lower that bar. And I know, sometimes I think the bar should be very fluid. If you're not feeling very well, the bar should go down. If there are these external circumstances that are making life really difficult, lower that bar. It doesn't mean it's always, low, but yet at the same time, we really need to acknowledge that it's okay for things to be okay enough. And I think that's probably the phrasing I'm just going to stick with for this. So it's okay for things to be okay enough. Now, what does that look like? We've been talking a little bit about, how challenging this time of year can be, and the fact that we most likely don't have the time and or the resources to have everything be the way that we would prefer them to be. And that takes so many forms. It can be, your classroom or your workspace, or it could be, the curriculum, or feeling like you want it to be a little bit more settled in terms of what your lesson planning would be, or whatever it might be. And for those of you, I know we have folks who are members who are not teachers, but the same idea applies not only professionally across any work circumstances, but of course also personally. And so in my mind, the beginning of the school year is not the time where you start, a super intense workout regimen, or where you do a cleanse, or even just saying that, I was the thought of that, this is the time where you lower the bar, not to the point where you show up to work in, sweats and, with zero effort expended, but just not as much. And I know, of course, you guys wouldn't do that anyway, but you get the idea. So lowering the bar and allowing, okay enough to be okay. And I would just invite you to reflect on what that might look like. I gave you a few examples, but just not holding yourself to as high of a standard. Maybe you don't work out quite as many days, or you don't make quite as many nutritious meals from scratch, or you get the idea. So that is my invitation to you this week, is just to ease up on the gas when it comes to holding yourself to a certain standard, and allowing yourself just to lower that bar a little bit so that you can function during this time that is, in my opinion, as I've been saying, rather demanding, more so than we often really truly understand. So a big part of being able to be resilient and to work with these challenges, I believe, is to invite in some of our meditation practices. And having said that, I've been touching on this, sort of intermittently in all of these practices. If 10 minutes is too much, don't do the whole thing. Do 5. It's much better that you actually get a 2-minute sit in than skipping this theoretical 10, 20, or 30 minutes that's very aspirational, and you've got this perfect picture of what it would be like with like incense and chimes. I mean, yeah, 5 minutes in your car before you go into work in the morning, that's good, and it'll still have that positive impact and keep your momentum going, which I think is very, very helpful. Okay, so I'm going to set my timer for 10. You tap out whenever you feel it's right. Okay. I've been doing a lot of this neck stretching lately. It's not always going to be the way that it is, but that's kind of what I'm feeling right now. I am going to roll my shoulders back. Big fan of that. Just allowing my hands to rest either on your thighs, or if you'd like, you can interlace the fingers, or even put one palm on top of the other. And of course, at any time, feel free to shift or adjust to allow yourself to be comfortable. In the spirit of that talk, we're going to let this sit be okay enough. And if it's better than okay, great. But if not, however it works, however it is, we're going to allow it to be okay enough for this particular session on this day, in this moment. I think I'm going to do a little less talking too. So you know the drill. Rest your attention on an anchor and just let yourself rest. You're giving yourself a break from following your thoughts like we do all day long. Your mind will go there, but then you're going to say, okay, no, I'm not going to keep following this thought. I'm going to come back and rest in the present moment. And even though there's a little quality of effort that needs to be expended to keep your attention here in the present moment, or to return it, remember there's also a very deeply restful quality to giving yourself that break and just allowing yourself to be here in stillness and silence. So let's sit together for a while, and I'll check back in a little bit. Just noticing where the mind is now. If it's wandered into thought, that's fine. Just acknowledging that thought, perhaps labeling it either just as thinking or even more specifically planning, remembering, imagining, worrying, whatever it might be. And then you just pivot back. Let that thought drift away. Perhaps it'll be waiting for you when we're done. But for right now, you're just going to allow yourself to come back to that restful quality of presence. Just noticing from moment to moment how things are right now without getting into that discursive mind thinking, assessing, evaluating, reflecting. And even though it sounds cliche, instead, just allowing ourselves to focus on being. So let's do that in silence until our final bell. And that is our 10 minutes. I hope your meditation was okay enough. I really like that one. I enjoyed that a lot. So I think you get it. You know what's up. I'm not going to beat it to death. So yeah, that's it. Thank you, as always, for taking this time for yourself. Thank you for allowing me to accompany you on this journey, and I will see you next week. Take care. Bye.